The Survivor Specialist Phil and Blake are back, and today we are doing another episode of Everything You Need to Know About, and we are discussing Stephenie LaGrossa Kendrick, who is now Stephenie LaGrossa Kendrick, was Stephenie LaGrossa the last time she played, married a Phillies pitcher, from what I understand. She is now 45 years old. She's played Survivor 3 times. She finished 7th in her first season of Palau. She finished 2nd in Guatemala. And then she finished 19th in Heroes versus Villains. So we haven't seen her since that. She was on Snake in the Grass on the same one as Suri and Rachel Riley. She does not win. She was the snake. She ultimately loses. And then she plays the Traders and once again loses to Suri. So here is Stephenie coming out onto this season, having played 3 different things with Suri and actually like been a factor in that, right? Like she actually was on her starting tribe in Heroes versus Villains. She actually was with her in Snake in the Grass, and she played deep into the Traders with Suri. So big relationship there. I know there's been rumors circulating that Stephenie's going to go after Suri, and it's like, I highly doubt it. But anyway, she's best known definitely for being on the last surviving member of the Ulong tribe on Palau, where that tribe got absolutely decimated, and she was the last remaining person from that tribe. So Stephenie's coming back. This really isn't surprising to me, although I feel like a lot of people are kind of asking the question of why. So let's dive into everything we need to know about her. Blake, I'll turn it over to you. What's your take from Stephenie being here?
Hello, I'm Blake. I think the one thought process whenever we're looking at it, and you do some trivia, and you are okay. Why Stephenie? Why is she important to the history of the show? What's the one sentence that breaks it open for you? I think the one for her is she's the only female captain to ever show up by her. I guess that's wrong though, because there's Wentworth and what's her face. Aubrey.
Yeah, but they weren't tribe captains, so they're saying that it's literally this one person is considered the
Right.
captain of the tribe, like they did with
So we had Coach, we had Ozzy. They're both in here.
Russell and Rob.
Mariano and Russell Hantz. They didn't make it because I didn't think they wanted to open either of those doors again. So were we going to get Bobby John Drinker to come back? No. Stephenie's the more important one. She won Fire. She gets to play Survivor a 4th time. Bobby John can only settle for 2. So I think that's the sentence of she's the only female captain in the history. But you're like, oh, a Guatemala rep, or is she a Palau rep? And you're like,
She's
okay.
a Palau rep.
Right. And like in her heart of hearts, I think probably Stephenie's been asked this is, in your heart, are you a Palau rep or a Guatemala rep? Like, which one did you like better? Which one did you think was more not as fun? And I think she would maybe have a different view than some fans, and maybe different view than some. I don't know. Would you rather do the one where you lost by 5 votes or 6 votes?
Would you rather
5
be the
votes?
one where you're literally the hero of the season, despite the fact that you're the biggest loser in the history? Yeah, I'll take that over being the losing finalist.
I wouldn't want to go through an Ulong experience ever in my life. Like that sounds
I
terrible.
mean, that is why she's iconic, though. That is what made Stephenie Stephenie.
Okay, so
right?
what does Ulong mean to all the people who are watching this? Being like, you guys keep saying a bunch of stuff. I have no idea. Ulong is her original tribe on Survivor Palau. However, this is the worst performing tribe in immunity challenges in the history of the show. They started out, I think it was 9v9, and Ulong goes all the way down. They only got a double boot to knock out somebody from Koror. So they end up, Bobby John and Stephenie lose 7 times, lose every member of their time. What's going to happen next? We'll probably merge. And then it was like, no, there's one more. And Bobby John and Stephenie lose again. And so that's the first time we see fire making.
Yeah, so she's the first person to ever win a fire making challenge at Tribal Council. Which I think is a really interesting little fun fact for Stephenie here. So here's why I think Stephenie.
It was a immunity challenge before, but she's a
because we had seen Hatch do it or something like that. But here's why I actually think Stephenie's a really fascinating choice for this. Stephenie plays on the last season that doesn't have an immunity idol, and then she plays on the first season that does have an immunity idol. And then she plays on an all returning season. So she's played all 3 different forms as well, right? Like she played on an all newbie season. She played on a captain season. Then she goes and plays on an all returning season. We've also seen her play in different eras of Survivor because even though we didn't really see her get anywhere in Heroes versus Villains, because obviously her versus James was the big storyline for those first 2 episodes with her, we still see her on a season where idols are a different thing than what they were in Guatemala. Remember, they don't even know that the idol is a thing when they're stepping foot until Jeff says it's going to be there, I think around final 8 or 9 or something when it gets announced to everybody. So she's played in different eras of Survivor in a way that like Jenna Lewis hasn't, that Colby hasn't, because Colby got to play a much more thorough game with idols in Heroes versus Villains. But Stephenie kind of was like at that transition period of Survivor. So I think that that's pretty compelling. And she's the first person to ever win the fire making at Tribal Council. So if she were to get to Final Four, obviously it's a totally different thing than it was back in season 10, which was the first season she played on. However, she's won a fire making challenge at Tribal Council. Like she has done that, which is something that is very important to the game now. So I think that there's a lot that makes sense about her coming back here. And I also think that it's still the storyline of what she was in Palau that carries through. People kind of forget that Stephenie was like the evil twin of Palau Stephenie in Guatemala, right? Like she gets 1 vote against Danny Boatwright, and most of the people hate her. But do they hate her because they had such high expectations for her? Or do they hate her because she's actually unlikable? Because then when she comes back and she plays in Heroes versus Villains, her and James go at it nonstop. But it's also like the alliances that were built in Heroes versus Villains were built before the game really even started. So I think that will be interesting to see how she plays on this season because she's been on a tribe with Sari. She's been on a tribe with Colby. She's actually played the game with 2 people who are going to be on her cast. And played all 6 of her days with those people. So, and Colby was actually a big defender of her. Colby was on Team Stephenie early on, which is what gets him in trouble, which is why it's always amazing he's the last remaining hero. But there's a lot here about Stephenie that I think
Colby's
actually
going to be
relates
on the
to
new
the era.
season too, so maybe they'll be friends.
That's what I'm saying. If they team up, it could be something. But just to put last thing here to tell you how bad Ulong was, just so everybody knows, they lost 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of 14 pre-merge challenges. 11 of 14 pre-merge challenges. That's how bad they were. And the 3 they won were all rewards.
So for people that did not watch Ulong, that you're trying to disperse this information quick enough, were they bad? Were they unlucky? Did they not work together? Were they headstrong? Were they stubborn? What is the adjectives you would use to describe Stephenie and the rest of her crew of failures?
They just were not cohesive. I mean, Jeff rolling his ankle early on in that season. He's their biggest, strongest guy. He gets hurt, so that's that. They were stupid. They voted out. They had a dumb boot order. That's really what it was. They had no leadership and they had a dumb boot order. And it's always funny to watch the beginning of that season because in the first 4 team challenges, they actually win 2 of them. They win 2 of the first 4 team challenges, but they win rewards, not immunities. And that's the problem. And then what's funny is for the rest of it, they win 1 of the last 10. So when you think about how bad they get, again, it comes down to the boot order. The fact that they get rid of Jolanda first, and then they turn around and they get rid of, what is it? Is it Kim next? And then like what, or it's Ashley or something, and then it's Kim. But whatever the order is, it's a stupid order.
Oh, it's Ashley next. Yeah.
It's Ashley, then Jeff, then Kim. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then Angie. So it's like when you look at how they were voting people out, they were voting so much based on personality and not so much on gameplay. And Stephenie really isn't the reason for that. Stephenie's all about keep the tribe strong. That was her mentality in Guatemala. That was her mentality there. That was her mentality in Heroes versus Villains. And she felt that she was one of the stronger people and she couldn't believe that she was getting voted out. But one voice, as James yells at her numerous times, and that's ultimately what gets her. So The one game, though, where I feel like we have the most information about Stephenie is probably Guatemala, and it's the one that people talk the least about when it comes to Stephenie.
Also, do you think right now, I think I'm joking, you're gonna be getting this probably 2 weeks into them. Has Stephenie's shoulder survived 2 weeks? Like,
That's a good
I
point.
think that was another thing of who cares who's winning this argument? Like, Stephenie, how's your shoulder doing?
Yeah.
And popping it out in the first challenge, I complain about stuff if I stub my toe and I don't want to go to the grocery store or the movie theater anymore. I can't imagine popping a shoulder out and having to do survivor challenges. But Stephenie probably works out more than I
And
do.
her shoulder was bad when she was 30. Her first season, she was 25. She's now 45 going out to play.
She's
So that shoulder's
45 right
not
now.
better. That's for sure.
Because it was 24, 25, 29 for her first 3 seasons. So what do you expect her to do as a 40-year-old? Like, how does that change her style of play?
I mean, I think she's still going to be really competitive and try to be physical. It's just a matter of, okay, let's look at this cast. And so Stephenie obviously loses a lot of challenges, right? She wins the reward challenge in Heroes Villains and then loses everything else. She wins one individual immunity in Guatemala and one reward, I think, but loses all the other individual stuff. In Palau, obviously, she doesn't win anything. She wins 3 rewards, doesn't win a single immunity the entire season. Think about that. Stephenie LaGrossa was never safe from a vote. She does not win an immunity the entire season. So I think she'll still rely on her physical attributes, though, because she actually was quite athletic. She actually was pretty good at challenges. My question to you is, when you look at this cast, even though she's 45, who's beating her from the female perspective? Like, Chrissy comes in, she's won 4 individual immunities, but Chrissy's also mid-50s now. Is she really going to be stronger than Stephenie in challenges? I don't necessarily think so. D probably beats the crap out of Stephenie in challenges. I don't think that's really close. But I'm not worried about Aubrey. I'm not worried about Sari. I'm not worried about Jenna Lewis. So you kind of get my point here. I'm not worried about
You think
Angelina.
Genevieve's been in the gym for the last year knowing she's going for 50 at all?
I highly doubt it. That's not Genevieve's game. And I think Stephenie's game is physical. And I think that's why the traders ultimately wasn't really a good fit for Stephenie, despite her pretty good placement, because that Stephenie's not the social player. We saw that in Guatemala. Stephenie is a
Let's talk about
player.
Guatemala. Let's get it out of like, all right, what happened in Guatemala with Stephenie of she's America's sweetheart. Do you think she benefited from being the captain of like everyone's like, I want to be your best friend. I want to, it's not celebrity at that point, but it's like, you do know what you're talking about from Survivor. Just none of an all-star cast is going to give her the room to breathe like they did on Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that was already displayed on Heroes versus Villains. But I think a large part, I don't want to discount her game completely, but there was the thought process of not only is Stephenie really strong in challenges in Guatemala, but she knows what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we could probably get rid of her whenever if we get tired of her. And I think in Guatemala, she found some strong people. Judd flips on the other side to just doom like half the cast. He goes right after. And then at Final 5, it's like, here's a bunch of people that I don't even think Stephenie won out challenges really. So
She only wins 1 immunity in Guatemala.
Right. So like I think her game there is a very unique game that is benefited from a lot of people want to work with me just because of who I am. And I'm wondering if any of these new era people or Survivor super fans, maybe like a Riz God at all, are they like clamoring to work with Sari or are they clamoring to work with Stephenie? Like, is she going to lose out on that aspect again? Because is she an icon of the game that people have always wanted to work with, or is that going to be an element in her 50 game?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what you talk about here with this. Like, on Palau, obviously she goes to so many tribal councils. She gets 8 votes against her. On Heroes Villain, she goes to 2 tribal councils. She gets 6 votes against her. In Guatemala, she only got 2. So she's sitting with 16 votes against her in her entire career, but only 2 in Guatemala. So I do think there was a bit of that celebrity status that she was working off of that was definitely working in her favor, like you're saying. And now it becomes, does she still have any celebrity status when she steps onto this island? Like, if I'm walking out there, if I was Riz God, right? Like, let's just say I'm Rizzo or Savannah.
Bill God.
Nobody has seen me play. And I am the person who's going to be like, nobody knows me, and I'm a big fan of the show. I'm obsessed with Colby because that was who I loved when I was a kid.
I've never heard you say that. That's
I'm
crazy.
going to have a hard time voting out Sari, even though I know every part of me should vote out Sari. Does Stephenie hit that level? I think Stephenie, to most of these people, is probably going to fall more into the Jenna Lewis era because Stephenie's third game is really forgettable. And Guatemala has so little representation on other seasons that I think a lot of people haven't revisited it. And if you're watching Palau, you're watching that going, oh, that's cool of Stephenie, but she never has a chance to win. And you could argue, not really argue it, it's kind of true up until Mookie shows up. She's the biggest loser in Survivor history. So I think that it's
Mookie at for this 50 cast.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for her, I think, to get to that celebrity status that helped her in Guatemala. But also, I'm not worried about Stephenie if I'm playing. I don't think Stephenie can win. I saw her final tribal council against Danny. It was awful. So I think Stephenie could benefit from being a lower threat, old school, maybe like a Kimmy Kappenberg, even though that would sound crazy if you compare their first two seasons.
One caveat of that is Stephenie on the show because she's not afraid to argue and bicker. And would that be a thing of like, okay, let's align. Let's do this. Let's make a 6-person alliance in our tribe of 8. We can vote out Riz God and we can vote out I don't know who's another one. Jenna Lewis, and we can move forward, the 6 of us. And then 6 days later, after we won every challenge, Stephenie is mad that you used the machete. Stephenie is mad that you ate another coconut. Do you think Stephenie is going to be able to turn that off? Or do you think as people maybe get older or maybe get like, come on, bro, this is a all-star season, you know better. Do you think Stephenie's going to have arguments, or do you think Stephenie's going to be able to hold her tongue to get further this time around?
Here's what's interesting about her. She's married with kids now. The last time we saw her play, she wasn't. But she's also married to a professional baseball player. So it's like you're talking two very competitive people now raising children. I doubt they're raising their kids to be like, as long as you tried your best, it's okay. And
they run that household like the Navy.
I'm saying like Stephenie and her husband are probably running around being very competitive. They play mini golf and it's who's going to win. And if whoever loses buys ice cream, and that might mean the kids are taking their money and from the lemonade stand and they're buying ice cream. Like, I think Stephenie is still going to be unbelievably competitive when she comes out here. So I do think she'll argue. And honestly, if you were to say, is Stephenie a hero or a villain now based on everything she did in her first year, everybody would always call Stephenie a villain. She's only a hero because on her first season, she was the last remaining, which made her ultimately the America's sweetheart underdog. But even on that season, she rubs people the wrong way. On Guatemala, she says things that are insane. And on Heroes Villain, she gets in a fight with everybody. So for me, because of her confrontational personality, it's so different from the new era people. I think she absolutely more fits into a villain role now than a hero role. And I actually think that that is going to make her one of the more entertaining people on this season. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I really do think that she will end up being one of the more entertaining people on this season because I think the new era people are a little too nicey nice.
I did watch her season, but I don't remember any arguments she had on the traders. Was she arguing with people on the traders, or it seemed in my remembering of her, it seemed like she was more passive, thinking that Sari and her were working together and going to go far. And we never really, I don't think there was.
Season 1 of the traders is so bad. It's so bad. I don't even really remember because it's like
man,
they
won an
with
Emmy
the newbies and it's a mess.
What I'm trying to say about it though is I think the last time we saw Stephenie was that she was a little more passive because she had the golden ticket with Sari, and then Sari backstabs her because of the nature of the game. Because I think Stephenie made like 8 or 6, final 8 or 6.
She makes it far, yeah.
And I don't remember her blowing up on as much as people as Kate and Rachel were getting into fights. So it is something where maybe that isn't part of her game. whenever she thinks she's good.
Mhm.
Whenever she's in the majority, she could be happy-go-lucky. Anytime there's some kind of heat, I think she'll turn up the heat instead of being like, we got to remove the gas fire. We're pouring water on gas fire,
Mhm.
is what I'm assuming will
Yeah,
happen.
she was 7th place in the traders, and I think, like, I don't know, man. Like, I think we're gonna get a different version of Stephanie, but I still think it's gonna be competitive. I think The Traders is such a weird game, and they have a hard time figuring out who to edit. And that is one of those shows where if you're the housewives type personality and you know how to lean into it, or Big Brother, or what Kate was doing, like Rachel and Kate knew how to get their screen time. Stephanie doesn't know how to fight for her screen time there. But I think on
I
Survivor,
mean,
she
she
will.
still got cast on Survivor,
Yeah.
so
Like I think she will. Um, just real quick, other things that McKenna threw in here. She set the record for the lowest placing contestant to be the highest placing member of their original tribe at 7th. It was then tied by Jeffra, Emily Flippin, who's also on this season, and Mary. So that's how much of a disaster tribe she was on. It's only been 4 times that somebody's been 7th place as the best placing person on their
poor
tribe. And we
Jeffra,
see
man.
3 tribe starts all the time.
How did somebody not break that? I guess usually 5 people make it and emerge in the old school seasons, and so,
That would
like,
automatically get you to
Sean
6.
Kenneth is 5th,
Yeah.
so okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because
So it's not
Colleen
it's not
gets 6th in
it's
Borneo.
not a crazy record, it's, like, one off of what's
Yeah.
kind of expected.
Um, and then she's the first castaway to experience all 3 phases of the game. She was voted out pre-jury, served on the jury, and was a finalist. So she's the first one to do all of that. And I just think this one's fun because of the way the season went. She's the only person on Palau to be on more than one tribe because she's the only one who goes from Ulong to Karor because they don't call it a merge. They just call it
Assimilation or something.
yeah, something like that, absorption or something. So,
Absorption, it's the grossest word ever. I tried to forget about
um,
it.
so that's pretty much everything you need to know about Stephanie. So I'll just ask you this: Stephanie winning chances. Are you thinking that she can get in with some of these Colbys and Cerise? Or is her threat level low enough? Or is this game going to be moving too fast for her?
And we'll find out whenever she's on. No, I think if I had to give her a placement, I'm gonna guess somewhere in the 17 to 11 range.
Okay.
I think she'll rub somebody the wrong way. I think we're gonna Blake, you keep putting people in the 17 to 11 range. Well, the other people that I'm doing, I'm gonna go a little bit higher
We
on.
haven't gone to Angelina and Q yet.
Yeah. Ooh, spoiler. But I do think Stephanie will rub somebody the wrong way, and it'll be like, why don't we idle out Stephanie, or
Mhm.
why don't we? Um, we don't really need her, do we? And like that
Yeah.
conversation will deteriorate, and then it'll go, yeah,
I
let's
think
get her out.
Stephanie is very useful in challenges early on this season. Her threat level is lower than a Genevieve. It's lower than maybe an Emily. She's not going to be fresh in people's minds. D is way bigger of a threat. But then I think it gets to the point where it's like, okay, but Stephanie's expendable. So it's a matter of, is she on a tribe that loses 3 pre merge tribe immunity challenges? Because then she makes the merge and then she could be dangerous. Or is she on a tribe that loses 5? Because at that point she's gone. And I think that's what it's going to come down to with Stephanie. So that's everything you need to know about Stephenie LaGrossa Kendrick. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think about Stephanie on this season. Which version of Stephanie is your favorite? That's kind of what I'm curious too.
Does
Like
her
this video.
last name mean the gross one?
I don't think so, Blake. I
Oh,
don't
okay,
think so.
making sure.
Just thank you all so much
That's
for
something
listening.
you
Like the
didn't need to
video.
know.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time with another episode of everything you need to know about.